Hi everyone, I'm Lisa.
And I'm Nick.
And you're listening to It Takes Two, the podcast where two people take two movies with the same plot or premise and watch and discuss them.
And in this episode we watched 1940s Pinocchio and Robert Zemeckis' 2022 Pinocchio.
Yep. So this is the first in a series. We're not doing these all at once, but we figured at some point we have to tackle remakes. And when we tackle remakes, at some point we have to tackle the Disney live-action remakes.
Because there's a lot of them.
So, rather than waiting till we've run out of other ideas and then dumping them all at once, we decided we'll do maybe a couple a year.
Yeah.
So this is the first one.
So, unlike normal, when we watch the worst movie, the lower rated, not always the worst, but the lower rated movie first, we watch the original this time first.
Yeah.
And then the remake.
I think it makes sense for when we do remake episodes to watch the original first.
Yeah.
Because then we know what's being remade.
Yeah.
And what changes have been made and why.
And we have watched 1940s Pinocchio before for our Real Boys episode with Chappie.
Yeah, so this is the first time we're doing an episode with a movie that we've already covered, I think, isn't it? I don't think we've done that yet.
So we won't be focusing too much on plot or premise, just mainly focusing on creative decisions or indecisions, because a lot of the first part of this movie is like shot for shot the same.
Yep.
Jiminy Cricket was weird looking, I found, for the CGI version.
Yeah, I think that's the very first note I wrote about. So I didn't take any notes for the remake, for the original, because we've already done it.
Yeah.
But the very first note I took down for the remake was that it opens with Jiminy Cricket singing along to When You Wish Upon a Star, which is like the original.
Yeah.
But he looks and sounds horrifying.
Yeah, he does.
That's what I've written. It took me about 3/4 of the movie to figure out what his voice reminded me of. And I genuinely think Joseph Gordon-Levitt was trying to do an impression of the Pinocchio from Shrek.
Okay.
I think that's what his Jiminy Cricket voice was, because that's what it sounded like.
Okay.
And they referenced the Shrek Pinocchio as well.
There was a lot, so obviously a lot of the properties that are now super famous didn't exist in 1940, that Disney hold the rights to, obviously, but yeah, there was a lot of weird references, because when you go to when Jiminy Cricket arrives at Geppetto's workshop, and the whole clock scene, and there was just like a bunch of scattered in Disney IPs.
Yeah, and it's funny because it's also which I thought was funny, is that it's a Robert Zemeckis film, and he also made Back to the Future, which also has a scene right near the opening where all the cuckoo clocks go off at once. So it's almost like he's referencing himself, except that does happen in the 1941, all the clocks.
So the 1940s one was referencing work that hadn't been created yet, so we could reference it again in 2020.
Maybe in 1940 it was Doc Brown told him about it.
Time travel. Forgot about that.
You forgot that Doc Brown went back to the 1880s,
Yeah.
Which is when Pinocchio is set.
It's true, in the
Maybe
original.
Geppetto is Doc Brown.
And it was Marty McFly as his dead son.
Yeah, spoiler alert, he has a dead son in this one that he's trying to replace with a puppet.
Yeah.
I don't like that. And it's like just kind of like mentioned once at the beginning and then never mentioned again, like totally glossed over.
Yeah, it's like the dead dad in the chimney in Gremlins.
The dead dad in the chimney in Gremlins.
Yeah.
We need to come up with a term for that because we reference it a lot, I think.
That's when I stopped believing in Santa Claus. It's weird to me because there were certain sequences in... I'm referring to the remake, obviously. There were certain sequences that are kind of weirdly out of place now. Like 1940s, everything was... Well, it wasn't fine because we had World War II. But, I wasn't alive, 80 years ago. But it was weird because, like... So it's fun, I say with air quotes there, for Jiminy Cricket to be watching Geppetto working on Pinocchio and like lean against a bust, and then he turns around and it's a lady and he's grabbing her butt, and then to be all like apologetic and be a gentleman about it and tip his little top hat and move on. But doing it now was weird.
They made such strange decisions on what to keep in and what to cut out. Because they kept in stuff like that, but they cut out the anti-smoking message, the anti-drinking message.
Yeah.
And they also, like, one of the whole major, like, messages in the original Pinocchio is that telling a lie, the lie grows, is what the blue fairy says, and that it's, you just end up lying and lying and lying, and it's morally bad, and this is part of Pinocchio learning, right from wrong, is learning not to lie and to be honest. And in this one, they encourage him to lie.
Yeah.
They just encourage it, which is a rip-off of a scene from Shrek 2.
Yes.
Where they jokingly encourage Pinocchio to lie. So if you have, like, here's the thing. If you've got this property where, it's a good little boy learning to be, or, a little boy learning what's good and what's bad and learning that lying is wrong, and then, like, a film that is a parody and satire on fairy tales in general uses that as, like, a joke mechanism to make the puppet joke about wearing women's underwear.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh yeah, we're going to put that back into our Disney movie aimed at kids. It's like, hang on. What?
It was very strange.
What a weird cyclical reference. But it also just takes away the whole message. And even because they don't bring the blue fairy into that moment. They have Jiminy Cricket telling him that lying is wrong, except I took down the quote, because what he said to him, hang on, where is it? Jesus, we've got so many. Okay, so what he says is, a lie can really change a person.
Okay.
Which is not what the message from the original thing was. His nose isn't growing because the lie is physically changing him. His nose is growing as a representation of the fact that every lie you tell grows.
Yeah.
Like, that was the blue fairy's whole thing. So Jiminy Cricket has taken totally the wrong lesson from him, which, in fairness, is in keeping with original Jiminy Cricket, who is, a conscience but has no idea what he's talking about and messes up a bunch.
Yeah.
But there's no one to correct him, and he thinks that that's right.
Yeah, there's a few other little weird moments that I found in the remake, and again, like I referenced to in Real Boys, when we compared 1940s Pinocchio to Chappie, because you looked into it before we started. We were watching Pinocchio, the 1940s one, which we were again, I'm referencing the Jonathan Taylor Thomas movie that you found out was originally pitched by Jim Henson.
Yeah, so that was interesting, because it was when I was looking at it was actually the IMDb trivia for the live action one, the 2022 one, was that Jim Henson had originally approached Disney and pitched a live action Pinocchio to Disney in 1985, and they turned him down. And it was the guy who he pitched it with, whose name I have forgotten, but I'll double check it. He then went on to write and direct the 1996 Adventures of Pinocchio.
Yeah.
Steve Barron.
Right.
And because of Jim Henson's involvement in the original idea, the Henson Creature Workshop worked on the creatures in that movie. So I'm looking forward to watching that whenever we do watch it, when we do like our 5th Pinocchio episode. This is it now. We do a Pinocchio episode every year. It won't be soon. I don't want to do 3 within 1 year.
Yeah. No, it was weird because like the references. It was more. Do you know what Astro Boy is? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it felt like a weird reference to Astro Boy, which is Astro Boy is a adaptation of Pinocchio.
Right, I didn't realize it was an adaptation.
Yeah, because the scientist who invents Astro Boy's son died, so he basically turns his son into a robot.
Right. So
that's the reason the robot's a little boy instead of like what you'd actually make if you're trying to make a killer robot, which is like adult sized, like Chappie. It was just sort of a weird sort of like nod to references of things that were inspired by the original, which is weirdly circular.
Yeah.
It was, I don't know, there's some parts of the beginning. At least I will give this one thing out from the 1940s version, which is Geppetto finishes Pinocchio, goes to bed, wakes up in the middle of the night because a blue fairy has given Pinocchio life and sentience, and then his first response is, "Well, go to school because I'm a good father." Like, oh yes, like all dads like that in like the 1800s. Like, oh yep, you can go to school, get out of the house.
You were born today.
Yeah.
Go to school, walk yourself. You'll figure it out.
Yeah, at least in this, they have time to bond together. Because he's like they're washing the floor and stuff and like hanging out. But it's like
not really time to bond.
Yeah, a little bit more than like good night, go to school. The bit that I found confusing was, exactly what you just said. The first time, because it's not referenced in the 1940s one, but it was definitely referenced in this version, where Pinocchio goes outside for the first time and is like, hey, there's a giant bright thing in the sky. And he's like, yeah, don't look at it. Like, what?
Yeah. And he's just like...
I'm allowed outside for the first time. Here's a sentient seagull. Also, follow those other kids. And, like...
He tells him to follow... Here's what really annoying is. He tells him to follow the other kids. So the school teacher is, like, going around with a rope, gathering children for the village. I don't know if that's what happened in, like, 1880s in Italy. Maybe the school teachers went around with a rope to gather the children. I don't know. But what's ridiculous is he tells Pinocchio to go with those kids. He's like, those are your... schoolmates, go with them. And then Pinocchio goes to follow him and he stops him. And he waits until they're out of sight and then sends Pinocchio, like, in a random direction, hoping he's going to catch up with them.
Yeah, he gives them vague directions. We're 2 blocks away from the fountain. In which direction, bro? Jiminy Cricket, again, like, oversleeps because he's literally useless.
Yeah.
And I tell you, so... And it's been, like, this is not my original opinion, do not steal... but a lot of people have been like shitting on Tom Hanks's performance on this for this movie, and I can understand why.
What's he doing?
I tell you whose performance was Oscar worthy.
Keegan-Michael... Oh my god, I've tripped up saying his name. Keegan-Michael Key?
Yes.
He's so good. He's like... He's in a different movie to everyone else in that.
And the... it's Clarence?
Clarence? Who's Clarence?
Honest John and... Come on.
Oh my god. I said it when we were watching it.
Yeah.
Now, but you've just said Clarence, and that's all I can think of. Gideon.
Where did I get Clarence from?
I don't know.
Okay.
You said Clarence, and all I could picture was the angel from It's a Wonderful Life, because his name... Oh no, is his name Clarence?
No, you're doubting everything you know all the time.
Listen, there's one of the angels, either the angel in the Muppet one or the angel in It's a Wonderful Life. One of them is named Clarence. I'm pretty sure it's a Wonderful Life. The Muppet one. No, he's Daniel because he introduced himself as Danny L, and then they're like, Danny L.
Which one's Daniel?
The one in the Muppet one.
Okay.
Because Whoopi Goldberg calls him Danny L.
Okay. Yes. Their character design is so much nicer in this version than the 1940s version because they just look like con men, but they're anamorphic.
Yeah.
In this, like, Honest John's like outfit where he's wearing a bathrobe as a cape, and you can see like it's like not a bathrobe, a
curtain. Because you can see the like holes for the curtain rail on it.
Yeah. All of it is fantastic. The performance is amazing. The way they've been able to sync his voice to the character. Because you said no mocapping was done for this movie?
It doesn't... I couldn't find out. Because
there are some CGI moments in this that are
bad. I definitely don't think that Pinocchio was mocapped, but I don't... It's possible because it is a Robert Zemeckis film and all of his other animated films are mocap.
Yeah.
To some extent. But I don't know. When I was looking it up, all I was getting was stuff about Polar Express, and I was like, that's not the movie I'm asking about.
Because the matchup from his... Because, you know, if you've ever seen him perform... you've watched Key and Peele, for an example. He's got quite an animated face, and it is very well portrayed on Honest John. matching his voice and matching his performance, because his performance is like his performance outshines everybody else's performance in the entire movie, and he's a friggin' CGI character, and it was really disappointing. Not because his is the best, I'm just saying that like the rest of the movie is disappointing in comparison.
Yeah, I think everyone else phoned it in.
Yeah.
And maybe the kid who plays Pinocchio did a decent job as a child actor, you know?
And obviously he was just like sitting in a booth.
Yeah.
Watching probably, stuff on screen. That whole sequence again with Jiminy Cricket arriving, them hitting each other with hammers. That was really funny because he opens his coat and he's got like 3 hammers on one side, and then he opens his other coat and pulls out a like comically like Harley Quinn sized hammer, and then reacts to the weight of it, and it's like, you've been walking around with that inside your clothing the entire time, and now it weighs something.
It is very
fantastic.
I felt like it was a callback, because I think a lot of people were worried. I mean, the movie's the movie's not good, but I think a lot of people were in advance were worried about it because they thought it was going to be like Polar Express and A Christmas Carol, the Bob Zemeckis one, where it's just like all uncanny valley weirdness. Whereas I felt like Gideon, I still don't think I think it worked but didn't work. It wasn't like, I feel like they could have included more elements from the original in that, and it would have been funny, like him Honest John getting stuck inside his hat and stuff. Yeah. But I think the way they did it worked, and I think it felt like a callback to what I believe is the first animation in a Bob Zemeckis movie, which is Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Yeah. Which was also referenced in the Cuckoo Clock. Yeah. But I think it was that, because there was a lot of like slapstick and this idea of like the cartoons, and it's the toon world with the human world, and the toons are very slapstick and stuff, whereas in this you've got the humans and the anthropomorphic animals, and maybe they were going for a similar thing there with the anthropomorphic animals having this ability to do slapstick in a way that the humans don't. Yeah. Well, I don't know. Tom Hanks, some of his performance seems very stiff, and there's for some reasons, I'll get into that in a minute, but just some things that just, were a bit weird. So the storyline progresses. He doesn't go to school. Well, no. So he does go to school. Yeah. But he gets kicked out of school for being a puppet, which is racism. No. I don't know. Speciesism. It's just weird that he actually in this version actually goes to school and is like, nah, you're not allowed. Yeah. And that's when he goes to join the puppet show, and they added a character who's one of the marionette performers. Why? I just don't understand why that character was added. It was a weird, like, let's add a romantic plotline shit. Yeah. Between the ballerina that she controls and Pinocchio. So here's the thing, right? What the hell is going on with that woman? Because she's an adult woman who seduces a child with a puppet. Yeah. She's an adult woman. Can I just repeat that? She's an adult woman who uses a puppet to manipulate and seduce a child. What? Yeah. Why is that in a Disney movie? I don't know. And she's supposed to be like one of the good guys. She's not even supposed to be she's supposed to be like the sympathetic one that you're supposed to like. It's like the Stromboli situation. They were like, oh, but there has to be someone nice working for Stromboli. Why? Yeah. Or at least if they were going to do that, have her then be evil? Yeah. Like... It's also the thing that I found really weird about the whole... So it's sort of like this concept of disbelief in the 1940s version where you sort of think that it's some sort of weird mechanical thing, and that's why the puppets keep breaking, because Honest John is talking about selling marionettes to Stromboli's show. So in my mind, it was always mechanical. They were always just like on cogs, and that's why the performances weren't great. Yeah. And then having people in the roof, like I'm assuming that's how marionettes are really done. Yeah, on stage performances. But I don't think they can do the shit that they were doing. No. Because the marionettes in that were not... If they were going to do that, they should have had actual marionettes. Yeah. Because then they would also really contrast with Pinocchio as a real boy, where he was a a living doll. Yeah. But instead, all the marionettes are CG. Yeah.
They really...
And so the people are just, like, making, like, weird hand motions. It's like hackers in movies, like, just tapping at a keyboard and all this shit is appearing on the screen.
Yeah.
It's just these people lying down doing weird motions with their hands and then it's just a CGI puppets doing it. Like, even the puppet that's, like, his love interest puppet frowned at Stromboli.
Yeah.
Like, the paint on her face turns into a frown. That doesn't make any sense. Is she also alive?
All puppets are alive.
It makes no sense.
It reminds me of that, you know, like, diversity's getting better and people are making products to embrace diversity. And there was a meme recently that I saw that it was for a doll for, like, a little girl that was deaf. Mm-hmm. It's like, this is the first deaf doll. And
it's like all dolls are deaf.
No, but then the caption underneath, because it was just a picture of the advertising, was like, wait, can the rest of them hear us?
yeah.
Oh, God.
But speaking of diversity casting, I mean, okay. I don't have a problem with films becoming more diverse. I think it's a good thing on the whole. But, like, watching this, I almost understand the people who think that it's shoehorned in, because in this movie it is. Because they create this character who for some reason is, like, a weirdo adult woman who is the love interest of our puppet who was born yesterday.
Yeah.
And she's a woman of color with a disability.
Yeah.
And it's like, cool. Why?
Yeah.
And it's not even it's not even like they just kind of show off that she has like they're just like like they zoom in on her leg, like there's something wrong with her leg.
But she's also got a cyborg leg. Because later on in the movie, when she arrives again and, like, off screen, Stromboli's gone to prison for his crimes of stealing from his employees. I don't know how that works. Because, you know, like, traveling, like, shows like that were obviously very abusive. Like, oh my God. Pause what I was thinking to go into another thing. What was that movie we watched with Bradley Cooper?
Nightmare Alley.
Nightmare Alley. Man, I was thinking about that the other day when I was at work, and I was like, fuck, there were some sequences in that movie that were absolutely insane, and I love them. It was that whole, like, geeking... For you who don't see... I'm not going to spoil any of it, but see Nightmare Alley, it is, like, one of those, like, edge of the seat, knees to, like, super engaged, then knees to your chest, like, hiding your face kind of movies. It has moments where you go back and forth between, like, super intense to... Well, both forms of intentment... Oh, no, intentment. Attention where you're, like, super hyper-focused and then super, like, I don't want to be involved with what's happening on screen, and it's fantastic. But, yeah, like, the whole stealing from, you know, your employees, I'll just leave it at that. But it was super weird that they have, like, this, shoehorned character who has a cyborg leg because she's wearing one ballerina shoe and it's got, like, gears and locking mechanisms into it, so when she can hold positions, but her job is lying on her stomach in the roof of a, like, carriage.
Yeah.
Why would she need...
I don't know. Can we also talk about the fact that she goes to rescue Pinocchio, but her plan for rescuing Pinocchio is that she lies on the roof above, like, at a giant window and lowers a puppet down to talk to Pinocchio and tell him, oh, there's a key in this room with you. We must find out a way to get it. Get down from where you are and just get the key. Yeah. It's right there. You can just get down. The window is really big. You can fit down there. Just get down and do it. And it's like, oh, maybe she can't climb out of there. How did she get on the roof in the first place? She climbed out of another carriage. She can do it.
Yeah, it's weird.
It makes no sense. She didn't need to be in that sequence at all. She didn't need to be in the movie at all. Yeah. And that's not because she's a person of color, and it's not because she has a disability. It's because she makes no sense, she adds nothing, and why? She's an adult woman working for Stromboli to be like, oh, Pinocchio, I understand. Is she British? I think she is British as well, for no apparent reason.
I don't know.
And she's like, oh, it's so sad that you're locked in this cage. I'm gonna try to seduce you with my puppet. What? Why is that in the movie?
I don't know. I didn't make any creative decisions on this.
I don't think anyone did.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's just weird.
So Pinocchio gets out, and then on his way home, he gets scooped up by the bad boys in the carriages to go to Paradise. Is it Paradise Island or Pleasure Island?
Pleasure Island.
Paradise Island seems a lot less sussy
than Pleasure Island. Yeah.
The diversity's better because there are also terrible little girls there.
Yeah, but the terrible little girls sing about how they only like real boys.
Yeah. It is.
Why?
Yeah.
That's the only thing they contribute to the whole movie is they in a song about what makes a real boy, which is all toxic masculinity bullshit. The girls are like, and real girls like real boys. Why? What is the message here?
I don't think there is one.
I hate this movie. The Pleasure Island thing makes no sense. Okay, in the original 1940s movie, and I believe also in the book, I haven't read it, I need to read the book, but especially if we're going to do about 50 more Pinocchio episodes.
Yeah.
But in the original 1940s movie, which is what this is a remake of, this isn't a re-adaptation of the book. It's not a different...
This is a remake of the 1940s movie, so Disney can keep their IP.
They can't, though, really, because there's like 3 other Pinocchio movies that come out in the past 2 years. Anyway.
Maybe they...
In the 1940s version, the coachman who brings the kids to Pleasure Island is in cahoots with Gideon and Honest John, and he convinces them to get Pinocchio to come to Pleasure Island with him. So they have to go and meet Pinocchio again and be like, oh my goodness, you're sick, you're allergic to the world, I'm a doctor, and the cure is going to Pleasure Island, and they have to like talk him into it. In this one, apparently, all children know that if you want to go to Pleasure Island, you have to stand on a street corner after dark, and the cart will come get you. And Pinocchio happens to be crossing a street after dark, so they're like, oh, a child on a street after dark. I'll scoop up our net and bring him to Pleasure Island. Or they're like, oh, you're so smart that you knew that is what you needed to do to get there. None of that makes sense. What is that? What is that supposed to be?
What's the bus from Harry Potter?
The night bus.
Yeah, it was a very night bus moment.
It was very night bus, yeah, because that is the same thing that he accidentally signals the night bus.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit like that, yeah. But also it makes no sense because the idea is they're saying that all children just know that if you stand on a street corner after dark, they'll take you to Pleasure Island.
The sequence, so in the original, there are the shadow demons, and I'll get into that in a second, which are like, and he does a weird Bilbo trying to get the ring back from Frodo moment, and which is a horrifying image.
Can I talk about it? Just because you've mentioned that just because of how you've described that.
Yeah.
When we watched the first film, the 1940s film this time, the only notes I took were things that I wanted them to keep in the remake.
So it was Geppetto pulling a gun on Pinocchio.
Yeah, that was one of them. So this is my list, right? I'm going to go through my whole list.
Okay.
And then we'll get back to what you were talking about. But just because of how you've described that. So one was Tom Hanks terrorizing a real-life cat.
Did that.
The cat's not real life.
Oh, yeah, true.
It's CGI, which is upsetting, but he still does terrorize the cat. A little replica bed for the cat, which the cat does have. Figaro does have a little replica bed to sleep in. Sexy fish, check.
I don't know why you wanted that, but
listen, you can't remake Pinocchio without the sexy fish.
Okay.
Tom Hanks firing a gun at Pinocchio. We unfortunately did not get that. There's no firearms involved in Geppetto's home in this one. He doesn't just sleep with a gun like an antique gun under his pillow to fire at children. Gideon and Honest John doing slapstick. Yeah. We got that. Yeah. Coachman pulling a Bilbo is what I wrote. Yeah. Which is exactly what you're describing. Yeah. He doesn't do it in this movie. No. And he just sings a song and is a weirdo. Creepy Pleasure Island Demons was one, and that is in this. And then the other two I had, which we haven't come up on yet, but I might as well read them, was Pinocchio smoking cigars and getting sick. There's no cigars in the movie, no smoking. Yeah. And the other one was Tom Hanks hugging a fish. And sadly that didn't happen either. Yeah.
So yeah,
So he pulls a Bilbo in the 1940s movie. He turns into like a demon face.
yeah, it's more confusing this time than the 1940s one.
Mm-hmm.
So in the 1940s, they go to the island and they have all this excess that the children can enjoy before they get turned into donkeys.
Yeah.
And somehow you have to believe that no matter what damage, because there's like, oh, just destroy this entire building, you can smash things.
Mm-hmm.
Here's, candy, here's alcohol, here's like amusement rides, here's just a tent you can fight each other in. It is a real weird mix of like 40k orc heaven, Valhalla, Korn's palace. There's a weird mix of like all the craziness. The thing about this version, the remake, is it is a way larger area.
Mm-hmm.
Everything seems more intricate. They go, him and what's the boy's name? Lampwick.
Yeah.
Go on the most insane roller coaster ride I've ever seen in anything, let alone just fiction, where it goes from being on a Ferris wheel into like a water slide into like a lazy river, but they're all in the same boat. Like, so that alone, like, he's turning boys into donkeys,
mm-hmm.
yet he has probably the most amazing, like, 8th wonder of the world friggin' amusement park. It doesn't make any sense. Like, financially, I don't know what 1880s donkeys were worth on the market, but it doesn't seem financially, like, it does, those two things, your outgoing and your incoming won't match up. And it is very confusing to me and always has been, but at least his minions were shadow demons.
Yeah. Also, if you have like a whole load of shadow demons working for you, why do you even... And you have the magic ability to turn children into donkeys, like, why is money even a problem?
Yeah.
Why is that even an issue that you're experiencing? I did think the whole way through that sequence in the remake, I was thinking, like, I think Robert Zemeckis is just pitching a ride to Disney.
Yeah.
Like, put this in your theme park.
It was also the other kids. See, it was like a one... What's the one at Disney Lando with the river?
Oh, It's a Small World?
It's a small world moments because the kids in the background are like in time with each other.
Yeah, and they're like all the kids around are... It reminded me more of the Pirates of the Caribbean ride because in that... You haven't been to Disney.
No.
So I don't know what you're talking about.
But I don't know what I'm talking about.
In the Pirates of the Caribbean ride...
90% of what I say is made up.
In the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, you're in a boat going through all these places, but you're like going through like Tortuga and stuff.
Yeah.
And this predates the movie. The movies were based on the ride, not the other way around. But you're going through, this area where there's all this debauchery going on as animatronics, like, downing beer and chasing after prostitutes and whatever. And then you're going through, like, the place burning and stuff.
That's an outdated term. I think they preferred the word wenches. But
yeah, chasing after wenches.
Yeah.
And then, like, all the stuff burning and whatever. And it felt a little bit like that ride.
Yeah.
But, like, with children smashing things in time with music. Also, like, before they get on the boat or whatever to Pleasure Island, the coachman is singing this weird song. Like I mentioned, the girls join in and say that girls like real boys. And then they go over and, like, there's just, like, a beat. There's not even, like, it doesn't even feel like actual music. But there's just, like, a beat that all the kids are going to. And then the coachman just pops up and, like, finishes the song in 2 lines.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait, was all this sequence just, like, an extended, like, instrumental part of the song that you were singing? Like, was that all as part of the song?
Yeah.
Like, his planned song is I start singing and then I just play music while you go through this ride, and don't worry, I'll catch up with you at the end of the ride to finish the song.
Yeah, that's very bizarre. Again, the whole sequence ends the same way, where they're playing pool. They're drinking root beer this time rather than, I guess it would have been ale at the time. So some form of fermented barley wheat sort of.
So they've removed the alcohol and they've removed
the cigars.
The cigars.
Yeah.
So here's the thing: the whole like Pleasure Island turning into donkeys thing was like a punishment for being
excessive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but for being like disruptive and stuff, like for being juvenile delinquents essentially. So like the idea is that when they're drinking alcohol and they're smoking and they're being destructive and whatever, they're being so morally bad that this happens to them. But in this one, they're just drinking root beer and playing pool.
Yeah.
And then they turn into donkeys.
Yeah.
Why? Like, that punishment doesn't fit the crime.
But it's not about punishment, it's about selling children as animals of burden.
But it is about, like, the whole, like, initially, it's a message.
Ergo, the business model doesn't make any sense. You could not get a small business loan being like, hey, look, I've got some employees, they're shadow demons, don't worry about that, they're immigrants, but all their paperwork's up to date. And I bought an island, I inherited an island from my uncle, twice removed, and I'm gonna...
I have an uncle removed. That doesn't make sense.
Just hey, you're approving my life. Don't look into my life, buddy. This is not what you're talking about here.
That would just be if your first cousin was removed.
Okay, so I'm gonna take children. I'm gonna steal children.
Also, that would mean you're inheriting from someone who's younger than you.
Stealing children.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna like give them like 30 minutes to smash up some stuff on an island, and then I'm gonna sell them as donkeys. How do they get turned into donkeys? It makes more sense in the Haley Joel Osment, Jonathan Taylor Thomas version, which is they all go through a waterfall, and the reason that Pinocchio doesn't turn fully into a donkey is because he gets bullet holes in him, and so the liquid drains out of him, so that only a little bit is absorbed by his pine stomach, and
his Chris Pine.
His Chris Pine. Oh my god, the Chris Pine reference. That's in the movie, by the way, guys. They're trying to come up with a stage name for Pinocchio, who's made out of pine, which they reference 3 or 4 times in the movie.
Yeah, they keep talking about how he's made of pine.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, we'll come up with a Chris Pine. No, that will never work. Like,
it's like, if you were going to be a famous actor and you're made of pine, what could we call you? Chris Pine.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a bad business model. You would not get a loan for that.
Okay, I don't think he needs a loan.
But
he's got shadow demons turning children into donkeys. No, but I mean, from a filmmaking point of view, it doesn't make sense. Because from a filmmaking point of view, the point of Pleasure Island in the first film is to be like, this is what happens to boys and girls who do naughty things.
Yeah.
And in this one, he's not even doing anything bad.
Yeah.
And also, the whole time that they're on Pleasure Island in the remake, Pinocchio's like, I don't know about this. This seems really bad. I don't want to do that. And it's like, every time something bad is offered to him, he refuses to do it.
Yeah.
Whereas in the original, Pinocchio
has no conscience and born yesterday.
Yeah, he's born yesterday, has no conscience, doesn't know what good is, doesn't know what bad is. People tell him to do things, and he's like, all right.
Yeah.
It's like, you want to smash this? Sure. You want to drink some beer? Okay. You should smoke this cigar. Definitely.
Yeah.
And then he, like, feels sick and continues smoking this cigar. He gets, like, nicotine poison and is like, all right, I guess this is what smoking does, and just keeps going.
Yeah.
And doesn't realize good from bad. Which is the whole point of the message. It's like, it's about learning to discern what's right and what's wrong, what's good and what's bad, who to trust, who not to trust. Whereas in this remake, he's like, I don't know about this. I don't want to do that. And I feel like the writers are going like, see, this is showing that he knows good from bad. But like, he doesn't learn it.
Yeah.
He just gets told, don't trust anybody. And then he's like, I don't trust you. I don't trust this. I don't trust like that.
I'm going to buy a car today. If you don't know, it's a bit where Eric Andre tries to buy a car, and he's like literally 2 men in a trench coat.
Yeah.
But they're full-grown men, so he's like 9 feet tall.
Yeah. And they go into an actual car dealership, and he's just like, and he's like, take that off. And he's like, I'm not going to take my clothes off for you, sir. That's very good. Anyway, yeah, it's just so the message for this one is not like don't smink. So message of the original one is, lying is morally wrong and lies will grow. smoking and drinking and destructive behavior are bad, and if you do bad things might happen to you, and you show that you care for people by doing good things and being selfless and honest and whatever. The message for the remake is don't trust anyone, and even if you choose not to do bad things, bad things will still happen to you.
You'll still drink the donkey juice. The juice that makes you a donkey.
It's like, even if you literally say no to all the morally bad things, even if you're not sure if they're bad or not, just say no to everything, and you still will be punished for your non-crimes.
Yeah.
It makes no sense. None of it makes sense.
Because non-conformity is also a crime.
Yes, and it's just, it loses all messages that the original had.
Yeah.
And it keeps in like word for word weird shit that is pointless. Everyone phones it in.
Yeah. Moving on. Moving on from Paradise Island.
Pleasure Island.
Pleasure Island. Sorry, I haven't listened to Guns N' Roses. So they end up getting back to Geppetto's workshop.
Yeah, which they do in the original.
Yeah, and Geppetto's is gone because he's just been like off on his. He took his cat and his fish to search the village, and also was able, when he found out that from the sentient bird,
there's a sentient bird that's been added into this movie as well.
I did mention the sentient seagull.
I know you did, but I think it's because in the original, like, there's just a note that tells him where Geppetto is.
Yeah.
And I think and you, like, watching it, you were like, well, how does the note know that he's in the belly of a whale or whatever? Yeah. So I think the seagull was to, like, negate that. Wouldn't
it just be a news article? Did they not have newspapers in the 1880s? Pretty sure they did.
But
when was the printing press invented?
Don't ask me questions like that. A long time ago.
Okay.
A very long time ago. Prior to Martin Luther and his 95 Theses.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So, yes. He sells all his clocks, which are apparently more important than his own life, because it was about his ex-wife and their dead kids. Like, she loved clocks. So he just sells all his clocks to buy the shittiest boat. Mm-hmm. And then we have this sequence where it turns out Stromboli's in prison, and the ladies, I can't remember the seductress.
She doesn't need a name. She tries to lure Pinocchio away from. Pinocchio's literally trying to save his father from going to Pleasure Island. And turning into a donkey. And this woman just knows where he is and shows up, and it's like, Pinocchio, don't save your father, come with me. And she uses the puppet to do it again, because of course she does.
Yeah.
And then he's like, no, I want to save my dad. And she's like, you made the right choice. What are you talking about? Why are you even here?
So in the 1940s version, he jumps over the side after the shadow demons are chasing him. And then they, like, attach rocks to themselves. He ties it to his donkey tail.
They do go back to Geppetto's home first.
Do they?
Yeah, it's
just so quick.
In the 1940s one, they get back to Geppetto's home, and everything is gone, and it's covered in cobwebs and dust.
That's right.
Because it's been weeks. Because the whole idea is on Pleasure Island, time passes differently. It's like Las Vegas. It's like always one time of day. You know, it's never.
They're gambling addicts living in the tunnels underneath the city.
Probably in Pleasure Island. Hell yeah, there are.
Yeah.
But the whole thing with Pleasure Island is that, like, you know, it's almost like Neverland, where it's like, you know, the time passes differently.
Yeah.
So when he gets back, Geppetto has been gone for weeks.
Yeah.
And, you know, and there's like the mark on the table where the fishbowl has gone from, and Jiminy Cricket's looking the window being like, oh, and he's taken Figaro and Cleo. Mm. And then they go looking for him.
Yeah.
Because they find the note saying that he was taken, that he's in the belly of the whale. So they go, and like that, like you were saying, they tie rocks to his feet, or, you know, he's walking along the bottom, because he doesn't need to breathe. He's a puppet. He's walking along the bottom of the sea, which I think is a fantastic sequence. And they replaced it in the remake with him, like, the seagull says she can't carry him because he's too heavy, and then he's like, I've got a better idea, and makes her carry him.
Yeah.
So he's on the end of a rope that she's pulling, so she's still holding up that weight, and he just jet skis along.
Water skiing along the top of the surface.
Yeah.
And then instead of Geppetto being in the belly of the whale for like weeks on end because they're like fishing from, what the hell's the creature's name?
Monstro?
Monstro?
The whale?
Yeah, the whale.
Yeah, Monstro.
Yeah. They've just replaced it with like the creepiest eldritch being, because it's like half shark, half whale with like
tentacles. It's basically like a mastodon or like a megalodon or whatever.
No, megalodon's just a giant shark. This is like some sort of like eldritch horror. This is like an old.
It's like a megalodon combined with the Kraken.
It's super weird.
It's got a big whale head, and then not whale because teeth don't have whales.
Teeth don't have whales. You're right, Lisa.
Whales don't have teeth, so but it's got like big teeth, and then it's got like all these like horrible tentacles and shit, and also it's evil. Yeah. Like it's intentionally trying to eat people. Whereas I think in the original, it's just like an accident that he eats the people. Yeah, it's super weird. So like they find Geppetto out in the open ocean on his way to Pleasure Island in his little dinghy, and then Monster just comes up and eats them all.
And then instantly, like, Pinocchio's like, let's burn the inside of him! And then they do. Yeah. And then he escapes. And then, because he's got really fast feet...
They rip off The Incredibles, where Dash pushes the boat mate, but in The Incredibles it's not actually a boat, it's his mother shaped like because she's a Elastigirl. He motorboats
his mother, yeah.
Technically, yes. Whereas in this it's half a dinghy because they've at this point the dinghy has broken in half and it's half a dinghy, and Pinocchio uses his super speed that he somehow has as a puppet to get them to safety. And then, as you pointed out when we were watching it, Tom Hanks sits in a puddle for a stupidly long time for no reason.
Yeah, so they end up in the same tunnel that they end up when they're escaping in the original, of the 1940s version, and then they end up in a cave, and they're going so fast that you're like, they would be dead. They'd literally hit something on the inside and all be dead.
Yeah.
But no, they just wash up on a beach inside the cave, and Tom Hanks just has to spend an entire scene with a lot of speeches and a lot of like close-ups, just butt deep in he's just in a puddle. He's sitting in a puddle for no reason.
He does die. He dies.
Yeah, he's dead.
He 100% dies, and Pinocchio sings "When You Wish Upon a Star" and cries a magical tear onto him, and then he comes back to life.
Yeah.
Whereas in the 1940s one, Pinocchio dies, but because he's been selfless, the Blue Fairy grants his wish to turn him into a real boy.
Yeah.
And he comes back to life as a real boy.
Yeah.
In this one, he doesn't even become a real boy.
No, they just...
Being a real boy is what's inside your heart. I did take down a note at that point. I said, the real boy is the friends we made along the way.
Yeah.
Which I think is accurate. It's literally, they just end it, like, they just cut off as they're about to leave, and they're like, but being a real boy is what's in your heart. The end.
Yeah. It's bad. It's bad.
It's a bad movie.
I'd be very interested to watch the Guillermo del Toro one, because apparently it's like nominated for some awards. So
well, I mean, at the time that this episode is released, this is coming out the day after the Oscars. So by the time this episode is released, it may be an Academy Award winner. The Guillermo del Toro one.
Not this one.
But again,
definitely not this version.
We'll probably wait until next year to do another Pinocchio.
Yeah.
We can't be doing 3 of them in the space of a year. So you'll have to wait for our Guillermo del Toro one. But we'll probably watch it anyway.
Yeah.
Especially if it is nominated.
Yeah, if it's nominated, we'll definitely watch it. I would say box office, but it doesn't really make sense because...
There is no box office. It was...
It's made $33,000.
What did?
The one the remake we just watched.
There's no box office for it. It was never released.
Yeah, it made $33,000.
On what?
Apparently with its release. I looked it up.
Where did you even find that?
On Wikipedia.
Okay, well, it's the numbers and IMDb both say that it made $0.
Yeah, well, it makes sense. It should have made zero. It should have made negative money.
Well, it was never released. It was Disney Plus.
Yeah.
So I don't know where they're getting this money from. Like, because
I don't know.
Is it just people who had Disney Plus subscriptions?
No.
Could you just watch it on Disney Plus?
Well, I would recommend not watching it, but yeah.
Yeah, I would also recommend not watching it. Ever.
Yeah.
I would like to go back in time and erase it from my memory. Well, okay.
There's a thing you can use that's called tequila.
But
it does work.
no. Listen, you're trying to turn me into a donkey. If you want to watch any of this movie, watch exclusively the sequences with Honest John and Gideon.
Yeah.
Because Gideon is really well done in terms of like the style and the animation. He feels very Roger Rabbit, and he also looks like the original character.
Yeah.
And for Honest John, Keegan-Michael Key is just like outshining everyone else in this movie by a million miles. He's in a totally different film. Yeah,
he's going for the Oscar, and everybody else is just trying not to get a Razzie.
Yeah, well, I don't even know if they're trying not to get a Razzie. I think everyone else is like, they're like...
I'm doing it for the paycheck.
Well, I was going to say they're bored. It's like during the pandemic and they're working from home and they're bored and they've just recorded some Pinocchio lines.
Yeah.
Except Tom Hanks, who obviously had to go to set and he had to do Ian McKellen on it and just sit in a set by himself going, oh, Pinocchio, Pinocchio, with no one else there.
Yeah.
Also, this movie has taught me a really important lesson.
That life is not worth living.
No. It's taught me that Tom Hanks absolutely cannot sing and should not sing.
What movie have you ever seen him sing in?
I've never seen him sing. Except this movie where like they give him a song, but he just like sings it, and then it's like, and then when he sings actual notes, they're all out of tune. It's terrible. And I was trying to look up has he sung in anything else, and apparently he produced Mamma Mia, the movie, and he auditioned for it and was told that he was too bad. His singing voice was too bad to be in Mamma Mia, which is a film that is noted for some of the actors, I think specifically Pierce Brosnan, having terrible singing voices. So if Pierce Brosnan was what they considered good, how bad was Tom Hanks's audition for it? Ridiculous.
Is there a special collector's edition where we can see the audition tapes?
of Tom Hanks and Mamma Mia?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd watch that. But also, the man cannot sing.
Yeah.
It's, like, literally I had to ask, I was like, is this supposed to be a song? Is this a song that we're hearing? Like, it was like Tom Hanks just like
reciting poetry.
Reciting poetry with like a tune playing in the background, and then he like sings like a little bit and it's terrible.
Okay. Have you seen
Does he sing in something?
No. Have you seen the Comic-Con I was going to say William Shakespeare.
Shatner?
William Shatner Rocket Man?
No, I don't
want to. That's better. It's better.
Okay.
He's sitting there bum puffing cigarettes and words singing Rocket Man.
I've seen or I've heard William Shatner like spoken word singing thing before. It's a bit weird.
I love it. Because Zach Brannigan does the exact same thing. Yeah.
But Tom Hanks, I'm sorry, he shouldn't sing in anything ever again. I understand why I've never seen him sing in something before. Because it turns out
everyone can be good at everything, all right?
Yeah, well, we found out today Tom Hanks is not a triple threat. He can't. The man does not have. He can't carry a tune.
Yeah.
Love him though.
Have you got any trivia for us, Lisa?
Trivia.
Trivia.
There's no point in covering the first one because we did that. We've already done the trivia for that movie.
Sure.
In another episode. Apparently Sam Mendes was in early talks to direct this movie.
Okay.
Sam Mendes, who we talked about in our previous episode, because of 1917. But apparently before that, he was also in negotiations with Disney to do a live-action version of James and the Giant Peach, and then he left negotiations on that to talk about doing Pinocchio, and then he left those negotiations, and Bob Zemeckis ended up doing it. But I'd be interested in seeing a James and the Giant Peach. But I really like the Henry Selick one. Anyway. Some of these are things that I've just touched on as well because it was stuff that I agreed with. Because it's things like the decision to remove like references to smoking and alcohol in Pleasure Island was criticised by fans because it removes the anti-smoking, anti-drinking message.
Yeah.
And it makes the kids' fates more of a disproportionate retribution because it's a lot more of what they're doing is just like typical child behavior rather than actual juvenile delinquency. So they do have like a shop that's designed for shoplifting, but if the shop is designed for shoplifting, then you're not shoplifting, right?
Yeah, it's just like that weird store that someone came up with. I don't know if it was Amazon. It was somewhere. I know we watched a Dancing Bacon's video, one where it was in Japan or somewhere in Asia, and you just walk in and just pick up stuff and you can walk out and it just automatically charges
right,
you.
Yeah. It knows what you've taken and you have like a device or something that it... Yeah.
Like you have to register for this store, so you just like scan your like QR code when you walk in. Yeah, because remember, pick up stuff and walk out.
The video at Dancing Bacon's was like, it feels like I'm stealing like that I've just walked in, picked stuff up and left.
Yeah.
But you do get charged for it. So I don't think even the shoplifting in this I don't think counts as them shoplifting because it's a shop that's called like shoplifters or something stupid that they go in and take stuff from. Now, in fairness, one of the kids does smash the window on it, which is probably not what it's designed for. But they're like, the punishment is disproportionate to the crime.
Yeah.
Because they're just being kids. They're not actually, most of them are not actually being like actual delinquents. Whereas in the original, they are.
They also missed a moment where in the 1940s version, which is even way worse, is that you realise that the donkeys still have their sentience and some of them can still speak.
Yeah, I was upset that they removed that.
Which is, again, the leading fan theory of Donkey in the Shrek movies, that he's one of the kids from
Pleasure Island.
Yeah,
because there's a whole sequence in the 1940s one where one of the kids is pretending he can't speak.
Yeah.
Because the donkeys that they ship off are only the ones who can't speak. Whereas the ones who can speak, I don't know if they ever really say what they do with them. I think the implication is like that it's not good.
Yeah.
But it's they're put separately, and the idea is that like they don't want the people that they're selling these donkeys to know that they're kids.
Sentient children. Yeah.
So like there's the whole sequence where the donkey where they're like, wait a second, they figure out the donkey can talk, and then it's like, please, I want to go home to my mommy.
Yeah.
And it's actually really sad.
Yeah.
And in this one, it just doesn't happen.
Yeah, they're just ripping the clothes off the donkeys, and Jiminy Cricket finds a rocket and flies through a perfectly placed drainage tunnel, guttering thing.
Yeah.
Just a pipe that he just happens to fall down, just happens to lead into the lair.
Yeah.
It's all very poorly written and way too convenient.
Mm-hmm. The other thing was about the timeline of it, because
he literally says, all that happened in one day.
Yeah, all that happened in one day. So Pinocchio just recants the whole movie, which is annoying because we just watched it.
Yeah. And
then Geppetto's like, you did all that in one day?
You can't have people announce how they feel. That makes me angry.
Whereas in the original, Geppetto talks about how, when they're in Monstro, he talks about how they haven't had food in days, and it's implied that before that they had managed to catch fish.
Yeah.
So they've probably been in Monstro for at least a week.
Yeah.
And when Pinocchio and Jiminy Cricket go to the Geppetto's house, it's all covered in cobwebs and stuff, and it's like this, it's been weeks, most likely, since they last saw each other. Whereas in this movie, the whole thing takes place in one day, apparently.
Yeah.
Which doesn't make any sense.
Because we only see Night twice.
Mm-hmm.
So the first day when he's trying to get back, and then... Do we only see Night twice?
I don't think we see it twice. Well, it starts off at nighttime, but then, from when Pinocchio leaves, we just see nighttime when he's with Stromboli.
Yeah, because he's nighttime with Stromboli, right?
Yeah.
So that means...
But there's nighttime in Pleasure Island too, right? So it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, the timeline is weird.
Unless they've done the opposite, where in this one, in Pleasure Island, time moves slower. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. It's a bad movie. It's badly written. For the most part, badly acted.
CGI is very questionable because it stands out as being cartoonish rather than...
Well, I think that's... I think that's leaning a little bit into the Roger Rabbit thing.
What? Pinocchio and Geppetto's hands?
That's just bad. That's not cartoonish. Because here's the thing. they did it perfectly with Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Yeah.
So I know they can do it,
Yeah.
even with like hand-drawn 2D animation.
Yeah.
It's just badly done in this. There's a bit where like Pinocchio's thumb slides through Geppetto's hand and stuff. Like, it's just badly animated.
Yeah.
I feel like they didn't give the animators enough time.
Because the zoom in on his face with the tear is also terrible.
But
because they just made the wood grain higher definition, but it just looked terrible.
Also, there's like a bit with the blue fairy where she's like disappearing out the window, but she just shrinks.
Yeah.
There's no actual depth to it. They just shrink the image.
Yeah.
So it just looks like she just gets really small. It's really weird. There's no it's just There's a lot of badly done to I feel like they must have like rushed it along a bit. Maybe because they knew Guillermo del Toro was doing a Pinocchio as well. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird decisions.
There's a lot of weird decisions.
Is that it? We done?
Probably. I do have the budget for this movie.
Oh God. Is it a lot?
$150 million.
That is too much money.
Yeah. For not even being able to animate someone holding hands.
Yeah.
When I don't think the budget for Roger Rabbit was anywhere near that.
Yeah.
And it was perfect. And there was like fantastic sequences of people like interacting with each other in that, like Roger Rabbit, and like there's a whole. I know we've already done a Roger Rabbit episode, so we don't need to talk about it again. But like the whole sequence where they're handcuffed together, where Eddie and Roger are handcuffed together, is perfect. It's like
that's beautiful filmmaking.
Perfectly animated, perfectly acted by Bob Hoskins. And well directed, and so good. And then this is just like absolutely failing to hit the mark.
That's it from me.
Yeah, I think that's it. I don't think there's much to talk about with these. I mean, we've talked for an hour about them, so maybe there is. I think the moral of the story is
don't watch this.
I was just gonna say movie bad.
Yeah.
Movie bad. It's a bad remake. But we did when we decided the order with which to cover the remakes, the Disney live action remakes, we decided to go with the one with the biggest gap in scores first. Yeah. So hopefully that means
they'll get better
as we go on. Hopefully. But also in the meantime they're gonna release more. We know they're gonna release more.
Yeah,
and then we'll have to cover those.
Copyright, what is it? I can't remember what the actual term for it is. Because you're only allowed to have legal agency over an IP as long as you're using it, but you have X amount of time to do it, and that's why I'm super hyped for the crazy looking Pooh Bear movie, because they're expired and they didn't make another 100,000 Acre Woods property, so now we're getting a horror movie with Pooh Bear in it.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
Yeah. I found out the other day about why Pooh Bear's banned in certain countries, but it's completely unrelated, so we'll leave it for another episode.
You think we're going to do a Pooh Bear episode?
We might do something that's related. Who knows?
Alright, well, if you want more of us...
Too bad, it's the end of the episode.
You can find us on Twitter and Instagram, @takes2_pod, or on Facebook at @takes2pod. We are on YouTube. Our handle is @takes2nz. And you can find our Discord link in our show notes or on our website or in our Twitter bio. And our website is ittakes2.co.nz.
It's a lot of things you have to remember. I don't even remember anything. Goodbye, folks. Stay safe out there.
And goodbye.